Welcome into a brand new hour of CBS Sports HQ presented by Geico. I'm Jacqueline D'Agostino alongside Tommy Tran. Tommy, it is Thursday, so that means we get football tonight. And we're not just getting any matchup, we're getting a divisional matchup. It's the Packers and the Lions. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, we all remember what Detroit did last year, right? They went into Lambeau, regular season finale, Lions knocking Aaron Rodgers and the Packers from postseason contention. And now it's this guy's team, Jordan Love, who's tasked with getting them the win. But I remember like it was just yesterday, Lions were eliminated from the playoffs when the Seahawks beat the Rams. But they played this one like it was their playoff game with a 20-16 win. Didn't even need the 4 points that they were catching. Rodgers was picked by Kirby Joseph with his last pass attempt. Then after the loss, Rodgers walking off the field, gazing into the stands, and side by side with Randall Cobb trying to soak up the sights and sounds in what would be his final game with the Pack. Fast forward to tonight, Dan Campbell and his team are favored over the Pack in Lambeau. That's only happened a handful of times the past 30 years. Here's a look at the recent matchups. Campbell adding this week, quote, "We know we can win out there. We've done it before, but you've got to earn it. It's not going to be given. It'll be loud. It'll be a tough environment. They're playing good, so here we go." All right, let's welcome in our NFL analyst sitting with me on set, Lige Douzable, and two-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden joining us. Guys, it feels like a reunion. The three of us talking Thursday night football with the show produced by Jack Capitano. We're back, baby.
It's been a minute. This was every Thursday last year, and it's been a while since I've been with my guys.
Yeah, it feels good. Let's get to it, though. Let's talk about the injured Packers, and there's a lot of them, but there's a couple key names. Christian Watson, Aaron Jones, both of those guys dealing with hamstring issues. The thought is the road to coming back should be okay. What do you think about the input of those two guys in tonight's game, Lige? I'll start with you.
It's big. They've missed them mightily. And if you heard what the coaches have kind of said, Tommy, they talked about maybe putting them on a pitch count just to work them back in. The thing with Christian Watson, he's dealt with this hamstring injury before, and those things can linger. He is their speed element on the outside, and they've missed him, right? Jaden Reed has kind of been that guy for them because Christian Watson hasn't been there. Now, Tommy, he can slide back into the slot position where he's naturally made a lot of plays for the Green Bay Packers. And then talk about Aaron Jones. They've not only missed him running the football, but coming out of the backfield, catching it. We saw it in week one, how dangerous he is. One-on-one with a linebacker. Jordan Love found him on an anger route. He takes it for 51 to the house. So that is his safety blanket. When all else fails, he can dump it off to Aaron Jones. This will be a big boost for this Packers offense, those two potentially coming back tonight.
Yeah, I think Aaron Jones is probably the most important player on their offense, not named Jordan Love, in regards to what he does for their offense. Lige, you talked about it. Yes, he's the best running back, but he's also one of the best pass catchers on their offense. So if they can get Aaron Jones back into the fold, that should help their offense out tremendously. The same can be said for Jordan Love as an individual, having the balance and the explosive nature that Aaron Jones provides. What he provides for their offense could be wonders. And then, of course, Christian Watson, you know, he's the speed guy when he's on the football field. Even if he's involved in a pitch count, you got to account for where he is because he can easily take the back end of the coverage at any given time. So just these two guys alone, especially Aaron Jones, should help the entire offense out for the Packers.
And just to button that up, guys, usually if Aaron Jones is dinged up or out for a short amount of time, A.J. Dillon can fill in nicely. This is not the same A.J. Dillon we've seen the last 3 or 4 seasons, so that's been kind of tough, especially also from a fantasy perspective. All right, let's get to that Lions defense. You guys, of course, on that side of the ball. B-Mac, I'll start with you. The performance they had last week against the Falcons, what do you anticipate that carrying over for tonight's game?
I think that should provide some momentum for the Lions. They just dominated Atlanta last week, especially in the ground and pound element. We knew going into that ball game, Arthur Smith and his staff, they were going to try to run the football. They did not have any success in doing so. So that was a great job. They actually held the Falcons to 2.2 yards per carry, which is great winning football. And then if you look at the Lions defense in totality throughout the entire year so far in the season, they're allowing 4.6 yards per play. That's 6th currently in the National Football League. So they've done a real good job. But the most intriguing thing that I saw last week was the way they got after the passer, right? Desmond Ridder was running for his life, and when he wasn't running for his life, they were sacking him. They had a total of 7 sacks last week against the Atlanta Falcons. So I'm not anticipating seeing 7 sacks from the Detroit Lions, but one thing I do anticipate seeing from them is harassing Jordan Love, starting with the best pass rusher they have in Aiden Hutchinson.
B-Mac and Tommy, this is not the same old Detroit Lions defense that we're accustomed to. They get after you. B-Mac, you spoke about it. 7 sacks. It wasn't just 7 sacks. It was sacks by 6 different players. So a multitude of players were getting sacks and getting in the backfield. Whether it was Aiden Hutchinson, whether it was Aleem Mitchell, they had multiple guys getting in the backfield and creating havoc. If you know Aaron Glenn and you know his mantra, it's man defense. He loves to play a lot of man defense. But he saw last year that they had a deficiency in the back end. So what they do, they changed up their secondary. They brought in a lot of new players. Now they're mixing things up, not just playing man coverage. They do some of that on 3rd down, but they've mixed in some zone coverage and allowed this front four to really get after the quarterbacks. You talked about how dominant they were last week, B-Mac. It wasn't just 2.2 yards per carry in the rush game. They allowed 2.8 yards per play against the Atlanta Falcons. That is dominating defense. You would think that carries over into this week versus the Green Bay Packers.
All right, and if we get to X-factors, surprise, surprise, where you guys are going to be going here. Lige, I'll start with you.
I'm going with the man, Bryant Bench. And B-Mac, a lot of people thought when Chauncey Gardner-Johnson went down that this defense was going to be in trouble. And also, when they drafted Brian Branch, it didn't make sense to me because essentially he's kind of like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Look at him right here. They line him up all over the place. He's a versatile guy. You saw him in the box right there. Read and react, get downhill, get a tackle for loss. This right, he's in the slot, one-on-one with their #1 receiver. That's Drake London. Strap him up. You see it. That's what he can do at the nickel position. Now you see him as essentially a linebacker as the slot nickel corner. Play action pass. Watch how he gets flat, gets to his zone coverage. PBU, big time plays. We saw the pick 6 week 1 versus the Kansas City Chiefs. He is the Detroit Lions X-factor because he is so versatile. They line him up all over the place. It's almost like where's Waldo when you talk about Brian Branch. He's played at an extremely high level for this Detroit Lions defense.
Yeah, for our baseball watchers out there who are tuning in, Brian Branch is like a 5-tool player for the Detroit Lions. The versatility is there, well documented, and I'm right there with you. But for my X factor, let me go to a place where you're pretty much familiar with, Leger, the guys on the front.
Oh, yeah.
Aiden Hutchinson, he is my X factor, and here's why. Clearly the best pass rusher for the Detroit Lions, right? We saw what he did last year during his rookie campaign. He jump-started to a fast start last week, getting 2 sacks, his first 2 sacks in the season against Atlanta. But why I love him in being my X factor in tonight's matchup, he's going to be playing against a backup left tackle. Good luck, Jordan Love. Good luck in finding a comfort pocket to work within because 97 will be in the backfield, week play in and play out. And the thing that I love about 97, he's always on the field. I have yet to see him come out and take a breather. This guy is taking advantage of every opportunity, not just a big-time terror in rushing the passer, but I love what he does in regards to run support as well. So he is my X factor because if he can get things going for their defense, he is the lead singer. Right, he's like the Michael Jackson, the Jackson 5. But when he has that mic in his hand, everybody else is following toe to toe, hip to hip, word for word. But when he gets things going, everybody else will come to the party. And that's what we saw last week against Atlanta. You talked about the 7 sacks he had 2, mentioned 6 other guys had sacks as well. That could be a big time part in their success if Aiden Hutchinson gets going.
And we just saw by evidence of that video there, he's been practicing his sack dance. His sack dance. Yeah, guys, let's get to the spread, which, by the way, this has not happened quite often in this rivalry. In the last 30 years, this could be just the 3rd time that the Packers are home underdogs against the Detroit Lions. The last 2 instances happened with Brett Hundley in 17 and then Matt Flynn in 2011. Flynn, by the way, threw 6 touchdowns in that game. So when they've had Brett Favre or when they've had Aaron Rodgers, they've been favored every single time. So this could be a night right now sitting at 2.5. It was 1.5 earlier in the day and a total of 45.5. Liger's got a single game parlay. We'll get to that in a second, but B-Mac, you've actually got a side here. Which side is that tonight?
I have a side. I'm taking the Detroit Lions, and here's why. Jared Goff, quietly, he's been playing outstanding, confident football, home or on the road. I like his ability to find success against the Green Bay Packers defense, even though they terrorized and made life miserable for the New Orleans Saints. This offense they're going against in tonight's matchup, they have balance. Secondly, Jordan Love. We love talking about Love, but his play hasn't been so lovely. He's only completing 53% of his passes. Guess who's behind him? Only one other quarterback is behind Jordan Love in regards to completion percentage. You know who that is? Zach Wilson.
I know he was.
Unfortunately, you don't want to be in any neighborhood that Zach Wilson is living in, because if you're living in that neighborhood,
It's tough. It's really tough.
That's the neighborhood you don't even want to drive by when you're looking for a house, because that's not ideal in regards to NFL quarterback play. And lastly, for me, when it comes to betting and trying to win money, you got to follow the trends. You got to sniff out the trends. Get this, the Detroit Lions, right? In their last 12 matchups against an NFC North opponent, ATS, they're 10-2. 10-2 in the last 12 matchups versus an NFC North opponent. Even better, in the last 13 games in totality, against the spread, Detroit, they're 11-2 ATS. You have to sniff out the trends and follow the trend, because that's the best way to capitalize and get a winning ticket. Give me Detroit Lions covering the spread.
I'm with you, B-Mac. I went with a same-game parlay, as my guy Tommy said. So we'll start off with who I'm picking. I'm picking the Detroit Lions. And Tommy and B-Mac, this line's kind of fluttered. It went up and down. It was -1.5. Now it's -2.5. But you see my same-game parlay right there. I like Luke Musgrave over 38.5 receiving yards. If you look at what the Detroit Lions have done on defense, they've given that number up to tight ends 2 out of the last 3 weeks. It's a tight end day in this same-game parlay. Sam Laporta almost went with over receptions, but that number kind of scared me. It was at 4.5. I'm going over receiving yards, 44.5 receiving yards. The Detroit Lions have given that up 2 out of the last 3 games. Romeo Doubs, anytime touchdowns. He is the guy that's getting the ball in the red zone. If you look at that Detroit Lions defense, right, they've given up a touchdown in the red zone to opposing #1 receivers 2 out of the last 3 games. And B-Mac, we talked about it. I like the Detroit Lions simply because I believe the Green Bay Packers are just more beat up right now in regards to injuries on offensive line, injuries at the linebacker position. I believe Detroit goes on the road and gets this dub in Green Bay.
And we'll cap it with this: longest active cover streak versus divisional opponents. B-Mac talking. I will say, this is irregardless of today, Lions were usually catching a lot of points in that situation, so they're not often in this favored position, but we'll leave it at that. Leger, B-Mac, great to be with you guys once again ahead of Thursday Night Football. All things covered. That is our guy, Bryant McFadden, with Patrick Peterson, who had that pick in Vegas. Boy, Jimmy G's been throwing a lot of interceptions so far this year. Reaction to the Steelers beating the Raiders in Sunday Night Football, then that emergency plane landing and becoming the active leader in picks.